A murder defendant's testimony wraps up and a surprise witness takes the stand to challenge it. We're breaking down the au pair affair murder trial in Virginia. And in Florida, a judge who told the defense to stop making faces during the trial has been removed from the case. And in New York City, an alleged FBI impersonator tries to break Luigi Mangione from jail. The court of law is done for the day, so let's call to order Court of Opinion. Welcome to Court of Opinion. I'm Julia Janae. Thank you so much for following along with us and join the conversation. We've got our power panel ready to look at some of these big cases that have been happening today. And in Virginia, that's where we are starting. Both the defense and the Commonwealth have rested their cases in the trial of Brendan Banfield. He took the stand today, the second time testifying in his own defense. He's a former IRS agent who says he had no idea that his wife Christine was allegedly talking to a man on a fetish dating website before her death. But prosecutors say Banfield was the one behind that dating profile. They say he used it to lure another man to their home in order to have violent sex with his wife and for that guy to be the fall guy for the murder. The Commonwealth says he staged the scene to make it look like the other man attacked his wife, forcing Banfield to shoot him in defense of others. They also say he hatched all of this up with the help of the family au pair with whom he was having an affair. Now, she already testified against her former boss and lover, so we can't wait to talk to our panel about their thoughts on Banfield on the stand. Was he believable? Was he not? Let's listen together to the highlights from that testimony and the cross.
Had you ever seen Joseph Ryan before? Had you ever had any communications with him before?
On February 24th is the only time I had communications with him in that room.
Please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury exactly what you observed with regard to his contact with Christine.
Christine was, I would describe as nude and on all fours. And Joe Ryan was behind her, angled slightly behind her, slightly to the left of her. He was clothed and he was looking directly at me as I opened the door.
What were you thinking in terms of Joe Ryan with a knife to Christine's neck?
I don't know that I've ever been more panicked in my life. I was hoping to de-escalate the situation. I wanted him to let her go. I repeated to drop the knife and to let her go. He said that she was his and that she gave herself to him. To me is what she gave herself to me is what he said.
What, if anything, took place that caused you to discharge your firearm?
It appeared that he did a very forceful stab towards Christine, and Christine kind of spun away from him. And that's when I fired at him.
Have you ever used or looked at FetLife prior to the discovery that's come out in this case?
No, I had never used or looked at or heard of FetLife previously.
Were you aware of Christine using FetLife at all?
No, I didn't have any knowledge of Christine using FetLife.
In terms of your sexual relationship with Christine, what, if any, differences did you have?
I was not interested in ever harming her. I was never interested in sexual violence. I would say that we also had a discrepancy of how often we would like to have sex, or I would like to have sex more frequently than we did.
Did you have any sort of plan for what February 24th became?
No, it was a situation I was never expected to be in. I would never want anyone to be in.
And why did you shoot Joe Ryan on February 24th?
He was attacking Christine. He was stabbing her. I mean, I wish I shot him earlier.
Let's understand, this is the first time you've told this story or any story about what happened in the bedroom on February 24th, 2023, correct?
Yes.
And you were given the opportunity to tell a court what happened when you were brought in to testify at Juliana's preliminary hearing. And at that point in time, You didn't tell anybody this story, right?
I was advised that defense of others is not relevant for preliminary hearings, and it was my intention that I was going to testify at Juliana's trial.
Okay, but at the preliminary hearing, you didn't even admit to Christine being your wife, correct?
That's what I was instructed to by my attorney.
You indicated that this affair with Juliana was really a nothing, right? This was just an affair. You had had others. This was not a relationship.
I would say that I had feelings for her, but they weren't nearly as strong as feelings for my wife.
All right, do you recognize this letter?
Yes.
And this is your letter to Juliana?
Correct.
Written while she's incarcerated, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is it fair to say that in this letter you profess your undying love for Juliana?
Yes, it appears that I was definitely in love with her. Definitely starting in the summer of 23.
And the long hot cuddle, was that before Christine's death?
No, that was after. We rode a bike and got caught in the rain.
Almost 250. Do you recognize this letter? Again, you to Juliana?
Yes.
And in this one, you're discussing baby names for your future children with her.
That is something that she wanted to talk about.
But you are contending, again, these feelings, these very strong feelings, these let's be together for the rest of our lives feelings did not exist when your wife was alive.
Correct.
Okay, and they certainly did not motivate you to kill your wife.
Julia and I weren't even together when Christine died.
You had broken up, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you need to kill your wife to get her back?
Definitely not.
So many good questions coming out during this testimony today. How did he do? Let's ask our guest panel. We have standing by. We have great guests for you today. Trial attorney and former president of the National Bar Association, C.K. Hoffler, is here. We also have trial lawyer and legal analyst Chris Schoenstein is here, and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira. So good to have all of you here. C.K., let me start with you. Believable or not believable? We've heard 2 days of testimony from Mr. Banfield.
No, I didn't find it to be believable. I think he did a fairly decent job, very calm, even-handed, level-headed, acting like an IRS agent on direct, but on cross. That's where I think it just sort of disintegrated. And I think that the fact that he all of a sudden at trial, this was compelling to me, talked about what actually happened. That's one that was pretty interesting. And all of these letters, you know, after the fact, and were they in love, and the fact that he said he had strong feelings for his au pair, but not as strong as the feelings for his wife. Just even comparing the juxtaposition, all that's distasteful. He was not credible as far as I could see. And I bet that jury is looking at him and saying, what in the world? Because that's how I felt.
Marie Pereira, you're reacting to the distasteful nature of the testimony.
I think CK is being very conservative in her description, and I know CK very well, so she's holding it back. Distasteful, the guy is a liar. He lied about every single thing, and then on top of it, you know, the wife's family, they're in the audience. Yep. He accused her of being a serial cheater along with him, while he is the one who was having sex with the au pair, and that's a nice name for her. Really, I would call her au pair / tramp, while he was living home with his wife.
So Maria needs to tell us how she really feels, though.
Richard, let me let you get in here. I want to hear your opinion of this defendant. I mean, he has a choice on whether to take the stand or to exercise his right, and the jury would have to disregard any feeling they have about him not taking the stand.
Yeah, he had a choice, and I think he made the wrong choice. I'm going to agree with CK and Marie. He did terribly. He has a threshold problem, which is he gets on the stand. He has to admit that he killed one of the two victims, and he has to admit that he's a serial liar and cheater. So he has zero credibility in there. He's got a new story that he's never before told. He's got inconsistencies galore. A lot of what he says doesn't make any sense. I just don't think this worked at all.
Okay, you're talking about it being a new story, and that was a big part of the cross-examination. But first, let's talk about this story. He talked about what it was like walking into the room where he first said he heard these moans and skin-on-skin contact, and then he witnessed this.
Christine was, I would describe as nude and on all fours, on her hands and knees. And Joe Ryan was behind her, like angled slightly behind her, and from my position at the door, slightly to the left of her. He was clothed, and he was looking directly at me as I opened the door.
CK, the reason that I wanted to pull that sound is because when you hear him talking about it, if she's been stabbed, she was stabbed 7 times. How is she fatally stabbed when he comes in and she's up on all fours, is his testimony.
Well, it's liar, liar, pants on fire. The thing is, it doesn't even sound like he's talking about his wife. I mean, imagine if he really loved her, and if someone were in the process of, first of all, the stories are inconsistent. That's all the emotion that you can summon? Was that talking about it like a cool and collected IRS agent who's looking at someone's taxes and going over saying, well, no, here, you underreported this, and you underreported that. That, no credibility. I don't know what possessed him to think that taking the stand would help his case, because not a single, it just didn't work. It wasn't going to work. And I think that he probably thought, well, I need to roll the dice with the jury. Maybe somebody will say that I have credibility because I work for the IRS.
He spent a lot of time, Marie, looking at the jury, even mid-sentence sometimes.
Of course. And what he said that Joseph Ryan said when he stumbled on them didn't even make sense. She's mine. If what they're saying is true, Joseph Ryan came to have fantasy rape with her, and there was never an agreement to kill. So why would Joseph Ryan kill her? It was only to scrape me a little bit, show some blood, turn me on with that. That's what he supposedly was there to do. What he said made no sense. Just like the situation where they caught him again, liar, pants on fire. He was dressed to kill on the day of the murder, not dressed to go to the office. And that's why his supervisor came in and shut it down. It's the little details you have to look at when you have a situation where Juliana Tramp is saying one thing and he, evil man, is saying another. You have to look at the little details.
Richard, Marie brought it up, so I want to ask Richard about this surprise witness that came in today. Apparently, yesterday, after Brendan Banfield took the stand, he testified that he had this important meeting with his manager, and that's the reason he left the house, went to the McDonald's. We see him on surveillance video. This is Thomas Patrick. So he came forward out of the blue after watching the testimony, and he testified that there was no meeting. I'm his manager, and no other managers were even in the office. He also said, Richard, that the way he was dressed, jeans and tennis shoes that day, that's not how I would dress if I was meeting with a manager and working for the IRS. Your thoughts on that witness coming in?
So I think that was a strong job of rebutting the defense witness, good for the prosecution, but really it's sort of irrelevant, because once Banfield takes the stand and spins the story, this is a one-issue case. Did the jury believe him or not? Sitting 10 or 15 feet, however far they were from him in that courtroom, does even one juror believe what he said to their faces? And it's really hard for me to imagine that any one of them did.
Yeah, I agree.
I like that point.
I agree with everything Rich said. Except I don't agree that it's unimportant. It is important, because that day he said he was on his way to a meeting and he was dressed in sneakers. He was dressed to come into the house and kill somebody. He wasn't dressed like a person who's going to work. So when the jurors are maybe struggling with why would a honest IRS agent with a beautiful wife who's a nurse and a new baby, and he's had au pairs before. So it's not like this Brazilian one laid the sex on him so that made him do it. Why would he do that? There's a juror who could be thinking that and who's just looking at details. And the fact that he lied about what he was going to do that day, he lied about being at McDonald's, and he was dressed like somebody with sneakers and a t-shirt who was ready to throw down, even makes him look more guilty. So I disagree disagree that it was unimportant because those details are what the jurors are going to look at too.
Okay, if it's all about just him on the stand, cross is really important. So let's quickly play a little bit of the cross that the prosecution did with this witness on the stand.
You've had multiple affairs, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and one of those affairs was with a woman named Danielle, who you met on a fetish site searching for sugar babies. Is that correct?
I would not call it a fetish site.
Okay, what would you call it?
An arranged relationship.
Okay, but you were looking for someone to be your sugar baby?
I guess it was a relationship where they would already know that I was married.
CK, what's your opinion of the precision of that kind of question to a defendant who's saying, no, it was my wife who was into fetish websites?
Well, she just nailed him to a cross. She took the nail and she said, I'm going to put it right here. Boom, boom, boom. Liar, liar, pants on fire. You know, I think the jury's thinking anyone who would lie about one little thing is probably lying about everything. He's lying so much that he can't even keep his lies straight. And so he's like, well, no, not exactly what had happened. It wasn't me. I wasn't there. I don't know. I don't understand English. None of that is helping him. She's just taking, she put the first nail in, the second nail in, nailed that to the coffin, the third and fourth. He doesn't have a shot from my standpoint, based on, first of all, the direct examination, but the cross, she nailed it 100%.
All right, we have to leave it there. Thanks to our panel for their opinions on that one. Jurors are coming back tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, for closing arguments. You do not want to miss it here on Court TV. Coming up, we're heading to New Jersey for another big trial we've been following. What does the evidence the jurors saw in the Mansion murders trial today tell us about what happened before, during, and after this crime?
Tonight on Closing Arguments, Brendan Banfield returns to the stand, but is the jury buying his side of the story? We'll unpack this defendant's testimony as our experts weigh in.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV.
Today. Welcome back to Court of Opinion. We are heading now to New Jersey. We're covering the Mansion murder trial of Paul Canero, where it is day 11. Prosecutors say that Canero killed his brother and sister-in-law and then fatally stabbing to death his niece and nephew, all back in 2018. What's worse, he didn't stop there. He then lit their house on fire, according to the prosecution, all in an attempt to conceal the crime. And then they also say he went and lit his own house on fire to create some kind of illusion that this attack against the brothers was widespread. Now, jurors took hours of evidence in today, and we are highlighting some of the moments that mattered the most. So here's what we saw today that we thought was the most compelling out of what jurors saw, heard, felt, touched. Beginning with this surveillance video from outside of Keith Canero's house. This is in the early morning hours of November 20th of 2018. There's an unidentified person who can be seen lurking outside of the home, and we've identified this kind of evidence, but it's a little different. Take a look. What we see there is this human figure appearing on the outside of the garage door of the victim's home, and they seem to begin trying to tamper with or mess with something on the exterior of the house. They're jumping up, they're reaching, there's flashing of lights, and the light, we understand, is coming on and off from a sensor. So are they trying to mess with the sensor at all? Here's another portion of video surveillance taken about 10 minutes later. A person seen walking past the garage door again, and that continues on and on in terms of the light going on and off, while presumably this family is inside sleeping in a mansion. Let's bring in our guest panel, see what they think about this evidence. We have C.K. Hoffler, Richard Schoenstein, and Marie Pereira. Marie, I'm going to start with you. What do you think about this evidence on day 11 of this trial?
I think it just magnifies the diabolical nature of this case, because if you know the rest of it, and we do know the script on this, the brother comes out and even calls the evil brother and says, oh, you know what, my power went out. But it was probably him the defendant outside messing with the power. But the other brother didn't even really know it, because when something went wrong with his home, with his family inside, who did he trust? Even though the day before he had an argument with him about what did you do with the money, he still trusted him and never believed that he would be someone he should be concerned would murder him and his entire family. That's what that tells me. It was him out there.
Richard, you're out there in New York, not far, presumably, from where this happened. Tell me your opinion of this case overall.
Well, I think it looks pretty bad for the defendant. I mean, his defense, as far as I understand it, is what I'll call the other brother defense, or you got the wrong brother. So he wants to point to another guy. There looks like a lot of evidence of financial dealings between the defendant and the victim, the main victim, and the victim's family. So that's a problem for him. I guess it's going to be a long trial. I think this has a ways to go. So I expect a lot more evidence and forensic evidence to see if they can pierce through. If it's true, if the allegations are true, he tried to cover it all up by setting it on fire. That makes the forensics more difficult, as does the passage of time.
CK, your opinion on how testimony, well, rather evidence like this, for the jury to see with their eyes something that's happening surrounding this incident, how does that impact them?
I think it's very compelling. For one, they're probably looking at the defendant. They're probably saying, that looks like him. That's him, that's him. So this is what the jurors are looking at. I'm looking at it. If it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, acts like a duck, it's a duck. That's him. That's him jumping up and down. It just really looks like him. Now the defense will say, there are millions of men and people in New Jersey who could fit that profile. But millions of men and folks in New Jersey don't have the financial incentive and motivation and have all the other stuff going around. But it kind of looks like him to me.
Okay, who knows what the jury is thinking?
Millions of men don't have a latex glove, okay, with blood evidence from the crime scene in their house, or shell casings that match ammunition that was in the house.
All right,
add that onto it, CK.
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence. It's been 11 days of evidence. Here's the second thing that our team picked as best evidence today. The jury actually listened to something. Jail calls that Paul Canero made to his wife after he was behind bars. And in them, he says he can't believe he's in jail. And then he later talks about a trust account that belongs to the victim in this case, his brother, Keith.
This whole thing is just so much. So, I just can't believe I'm here. One way or the other. Let's talk about something else. How crazy. I mean, at some point, Corey's got to figure out, or you got to figure out what's going on with Keith's accounts too. And that's what that trust is going to let you do, because the trust account is going to give us access to everything.
Richard, how do jail calls go over with jurors?
Well, it depends what's said. So the problem with this jail call is it's too soon for this defendant to be focusing on these trust accounts. His brother has been killed and his entire family. He's in jail. He should be concerned with other things other than the money. So that he's on this call so early in the process talking about getting a hand on these trust accounts, I think that's very damning evidence. It's a very bad call, even though he doesn't say anything concrete.
Yeah, CK, he does say, let's talk about something else, as in he doesn't want to get into the details of the case.
Yeah, because he was told to say that. His attorney said, don't get into whatever you do, don't do that. But you see, why is he asking about money and trust accounts? His niece and nephew, children, were murdered brutally. God. I mean, how? And that's what you're talking about? And so I just think this is bad.
It's called callous disregard for human life.
Bad, bad. I agree. Bad, bad, and more bad. And the reason why I say that, Julia, is because this is the thing. These calls, he knows he's being recorded because they say, you're being recorded, you're being recorded. So he's trying to have a tape that's self-serving, but he also wants to know about that money.
Yeah, he says he can't believe he's in there. Like, he's very shocked that he would be a suspect. Let's move to our third and final piece of evidence today. These images were shown of the hoodie that Keith Canero was wearing that early morning that he was killed. Now, this hoodie has bullet holes in it, and a gunshot residue analyst testified about the range in which the bullet was fired. Take a listen.
There's a black ring around the hole, which could be bullet white, which means a passage of a bullet. Hole C exhibits the physical characteristics of a bullet hole produced when the muzzle of a firearm is in contact or near contact with the garment.
Marie, near contact, what does that mean to you?
He shot him up close and personal, put the gun right on his clothing and went pow pow. He was close to him when he did it. He didn't do it from a distance. And it just explains the heinous nature of the crime. And I told you, we're not talking death penalty here, but if he's convicted, a person in position of trust for money, killing small children, helpless women for no apparent reason but money, aggravatingfactors.com.
Richard, the defense says that there are a lot of factors that could change gunshot residue, but how do you think it moves the needle for the jury, if at all?
Well, I agree with everything Marie just said, but also close up implies that the victim perhaps knew the person who was killing him, because that person you would allow to get closer than a stranger. So it increases the probability that the victim knew the assassin. That increases the possibility that the assassin was the defendant.
Great opinions from everyone. We appreciate them in that case. They're actually dark tomorrow, and then on Monday they will return for more evidence from the state of New Jersey. Let's get to our break, and when we come back, we're going beyond the gavel, breaking down the biggest true crime cases. There's a woman who called 911 for help but never made it out alive. A former deputy was sentenced today for the killing of a woman inside of her home. We have the details next. Welcome back. Let's go beyond the gavel. In Illinois, former sheriff's deputy Sean Grayson will spend the next 20 years in prison for the killing of Sonia Massey, a mother of two who called 911 for help, and yet she never made it out alive. It's all happening the morning of July 6, 2024. Massey, who struggled with her own mental health issues, she called 911 because she said she feared there was a prowler outside of her Springfield home. And Grayson and another deputy, who was not charged in this case, showed up, searched her yard, and then met her inside. And while inside, things escalated pretty quickly after Massey removed a pot of boiling water from her stove. Now, this is the moment that went viral, the body camera footage, and I want to warn you, it is covering something that is disturbing. Take a listen.
I don't know where my item is.
Are you in that stack right there, maybe?
Okay. 1 second.
Check on her.
Let me get this.
No, we don't need a fire while we're here.
Right. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Where you going?
Huh?
Where you going?
Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I would rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
I
rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
better not. I swear to God, I'll shoot you right in your face.
All right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Drop the pot! Drop the pot! Drop the 14 shots fired. Shots fired! Shots fired! Drop the pot!
It's so hard to watch, but just know that this is what the jury reviewed and came back with second-degree murder, which was the lesser charge that they were given there in the deliberation room. Grayson, in that video, and of course the medical evidence shows that he shot her in the face. He said he feared Massey would scald him. Now, in the sentencing, there were no cameras allowed, but we have a look from the words that were said inside of that courtroom, where Grayson admitted to wrongdoing for the first time. He told the court, quote, that he had made terrible decisions. The judge, though, wasn't persuaded. He called Grayson's actions an act of unreasonable rage and handed down the maximum sentence. Now, Massey's children also spoke publicly for the first time. Sonia Massey's daughter, Summer, she said her life is never going to be the same, adding that 20 years will never be enough. Her son said the pain from this has been unimaginable. Let's bring in our guest panel to talk about this case. C.K. Hoffler, Richard Schoenstein, and Marie Pereira. C.K., I want to start with you on this one. I know you have a unique connection to Chicago and the community work that you do. Tell me what the impact has been for this case, the viral video, and now the 20-year sentence for the defendant.
Absolutely, tremendous impact. I'm chair of the board of Rainbow Push Coalition, and so we do a lot in Chicago. headquartered in Chicago, and I think this is a case that moved everyone, not just in Chicago, but throughout the nation, because when this went viral, it was very clear that she was a helpless woman. And to think that there was a threat, first of all, she was way on the other side of the kitchen area. And they talked about the boiling water. For that to be what he said, that he shot her in the face because he feared that she was going to throw some boiling hot water on him, that is preposterous. And I'm glad that the jury saw through that. I would have liked to have seen first-degree murder. But the judge did give him the maximum sentence. And so I do think while some feel this wasn't enough, at least, as her children said, something, that there was some level of justice with him going away for 20 years. Now, realistically, he probably won't serve 20 years, but at least a jury came back and a judge sentenced him to the maximum amount for the conviction for second-degree murder. So this is forever going to go down as one of the worst, most despicable acts of cowardice when you have a helpless woman, a mother, who clearly did not pose a lethal threat, but yet lethal violence, the worst kind of violence, and to shoot someone in the face. These are trained officers. He knew he was going to shoot her in the face.
Richard, I want to go to you. I want to get your reaction to the sentence, but also he attempted, in terms of the defendant, Grayson, to acknowledge his wrongdoing. He tried to apologize in some regard, and sometimes people say that's what you have to do at sentencing, but many defendants don't even go that far.
Yeah.
Well, he did that, but that contrition comes much too late. Remember, he defended this case. He contested the charges. He pled self-defense. So he fought this. He said he was in the right. That was his position up until today. And only at sentencing does he say, oh, well, golly, I might have made a mistake. And that is too late. You know, the other panelist is absolutely right. This woman was no threat to anybody in this apartment. The video is damning. This was a deputy way out of his league who committed a preposterous act. He is lucky he only got second degree, and he is lucky he only got a 20-year sentence. He'll probably only serve half of that.
Marie, we keep talking about the video. Can you imagine a situation where there would be no video? What would have been the outcome without it?
That's exactly what I was thinking. It would have been, she lunged at me, she went for my gun, and that's why I did what I did. You know, I wonder about someone like that. And I agree with Rich. He's saying, I'm sorry now, but you know what, to me, he's saying it because he's trying to lessen his sentence. That's what he was trying to do. I think it was a complete disregard for her life, and I would love to see his history of contact with people in the community to see if he has a history of violence, particularly, I want to say, against people of color. I don't want to make it like a because she was black thing, but it is so upsetting to me. I'm wondering, why would he so disregard her life like that? Like she was nothing. And like CK said, what water? She was standing so many feet away from him, and he's wearing a body vest. So even if she did throw some hot water on him, what damage could he sustain which would justify shooting this poor woman in the face? And if you look at the video from the beginning, she's sitting next to them. He's talking to her on the sofa, and he didn't seem threatened by her. Come on. He treated her like she was nothing.
This case has ignited so many emotions. There were so many protests, and we're seeing this play out from our panel. So we appreciate your opinions. We'll continue to follow that story. We do have to get to a break, but coming up, we're getting the hot takes on the cold facts. Our panel is going to be giving us their opinions on some of the big headlines. One, this big verdict where a man is convicted of killing his brother-in-law, but the jury didn't go all the way with their verdict. A woman wins her bid to get rid of a biased judge, and a man makes a trip to a New York federal prison to try and free an infamous prisoner. Stay with us.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, Brendan Banfield returns to the stand, but is the jury buying his side of the story? We'll unpack this defendant's testimony as our experts weigh in.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Ezra McCandless was gender confused. She is standing trial for stabbing one of her lovers to death.
Was this murder? The Killer Girlfriend Murder Trial. Weekdays on Court TV Legendary Trials.
Our Court of Opinion experts, they have strong takes on all of the trials we bring you here on Court TV. Now we want to get their hot takes on the big legal headlines developing today. So here are the cold hard facts on our first headline. Kevin Ellis found guilty late last night in the shooting death of his brother-in-law, Matthew Ristelli. This is in the family plot murder trial there in Utah. Prosecutors argued that Ellis conspired with his mom and sister to shoot Ristelli and then staged the scene to make it look like self-defense. But after about 6 hours of deliberations, this jury did find Ellis guilty of the murder, but not guilty of conspiracy. Ellis's mom, Tracy Griss, is set to go to trial on April 13th. His sister, Catherine Ristelli, she already pleaded guilty and testified during his trial. Let's bring back in our panel, C.K. Hoffler, Christian Schoenstein, and Marie Pereira with us. Marie, I'm going to start with you. Tell me your take on the jury's decision. You have 25 seconds. They didn't come back with guilty on conspiracy.
That could be problematic for him because that means they're saying he did it all on his own. No one even plotted and told him to do it, that he volunteered himself to murder this man. Rich may not remember this, but he used to have a saying when I was on with him on other occasions. He'd say, play stupid games and get stupid prizes. Rich, I'm handing it to you.
Richard, I don't know why I keep saying Chris. Richard Schoenstein, I obviously know your name. Tell me what your take is on this case when it comes to what's next for Mom, because she still has a trial out there.
Well, you know, this trial tells you something, which is it's harder to prove conspiracy than it is to prove murder. He shot the guy 7 times. The jury bought that it was murder, intentional murder, and he still faces a life sentence for that. But they weren't convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that he was part of a conspiracy. That might be good news for the mom, except you would think the prosecution will learn from its mistakes and do better next time.
CK, what do you think?
I think it's very difficult for jurors to convict anyone in conspiracy. They just don't believe there's a conspiracy, even when the evidence is as strong as it is here. Because if he shot him all those times and all the evidence that we saw in the case, it reeks of conspiracy, but jurors don't like conspiracy, especially, I think, involving women.
All right, let's turn to our second story of the night. This one out of Florida. A woman faces sentencing with a new judge after successfully having the trial judge removed from her case. Alicia Andrews was convicted of manslaughter in October for the shooting death of rapper Charles Jones, who was known as Julio Fulio. Now, Andrews' sentencing was on hold. It was supposed to go forward in December, but it was pending because her attorneys filed an appeal, arguing that the judge in her case was biased and needed to be removed. Judge Michelle Cisco presided over the trial. The defense argued that her conduct prevented them from having a fair judge. They said she exhibited hostility towards the defense. And here's one moment captured on video.
Ms. Herrera, stop. I didn't ask you to talk.
I didn't know how to ask.
Yeah, you do. You do. Stop, Ms. Herrera, you need to stop right now, because you know what? You've been making faces throughout this entire trial. This entire trial, yeah, you have been. And your attitude is very disrespectful. I'll note for the record.
And no new sentencing date has been set yet for Alicia Andrews. Maybe we'll have a new trial filed. Richard, what do you think in terms of the judge being removed? I mean, it's a big deal to get a judge removed.
It is a big deal, but you know, we're always trying to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. So here you have a situation where there's a charge of unfairness, and you're at a juncture in the case that you can relatively easily switch out the judge. You're not in the middle of the trial. You're not right before the trial. You're on to a new proceeding. It's judicious and reasonable to put in a new judge at this point.
Good point. Perfect timing, too. C.K. Hoffler, what's your take on this one?
Amazing job by her lawyers. It's very, very, very difficult. I don't care how bad the conduct is, arguably, how much impropriety there is, allegedly, by a judge. It's very difficult, Julia, to get a judge removed. But the other thing I would say about this, you just never know how it's going to play out in the next phase, because this could go on, and it's very, very, very good for this defendant. And I have to say kudos to those lawyers for whatever they argued getting that done.
Marie Pereira, your take on this one, especially now that we have this pending sentencing, we'll have a new judge on the bench.
Say his name, Jeremy McClymont. Jeremy McClymont. I agree with CK. He did a formidable job. Just the strategy of stopping the judge on December 5th when the sentencing was December 8th, and the fact that he had all of the proof of what she did and the way that she appeared to be biased against his team was masterful. And with that, like CK says, it may escalate to the next level.
That's the time, Marie. That's the time. Thank you for that take. Let's get to our final story. This one out of New York City. Authorities say a man impersonating an FBI agent trying to get Luigi Mangione out of jail. 36-year-old Mark Anderson, according to authorities, showed up to a federal jail in New York City claiming to be an FBI agent and told officers he had a court order to release Mangione. When the officers asked for his federal credentials, Anderson showed them a Minnesota driver's license instead. And they threw numerous documents at them, claimed to have weapons. Officers then searched his bag. They found a barbecue fork and something that looked like a pizza cutter. You can't make this stuff up. The man was arrested and charged with the impersonation of an FBI agent. Marie, 25 seconds, your take.
A barbecue fork and a pizza cutter? They better check the jail calls to see if Luigi had anything to do with this. Because why would this guy just show up and think that they were going to believe him? If it wasn't such a horrible crime, what he did, and this is so serious, this is hysterical. That somebody actually showed up with a Minnesota license claiming to be law enforcement and they want to bust him out? My God.
CK, I think the most surprising thing to me is that Luigi Mangione's fan base involves more people than just, these young women that we see show up to every trial. What's your take on this one?
Well, I just think this is some craziness. For him to really actually believe that anyone would think that he were an FBI agent with a raggedy driver's license and some utensils in his backpack, and that he was going to really get him released is just craziness. I hate to say that. I don't even know his mental condition, but there's something 1 + 1 is not equaling 2.
Richard, there's almost something to that. Is this something where we might see an insanity plea on this? I mean, what is the sentence length for trying to impersonate a federal law enforcement agent?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he was just there to try to make Luigi a pizza. Maybe he wasn't trying to break him out at all. I don't know what he's going to argue. But I'll tell you, for Luigi Mangione, the big day is coming up because we may find out tomorrow if those death penalty eligible charges are staying in the federal case or not. Yeah. That's the thing that's going to fundamentally turn his prosecution. We're waiting for that ruling.
Oh, that is an important thing to point out. I appreciate that because we've also got this new July 1st state trial that could go forward that the defense says we didn't even know about that. So a lot more to come in that case. Marie Pereira, Richard Schoenstein, and CK Hoffler, we appreciate your time and being with us on Court of Opinion. Thank you for connecting with us this hour. I'm Julia Janae, reminding you that while we all have opinions, they should be rooted in facts. So we should be striving to respect the other's opinion, even when we don't agree. Exercise that muscle of debate.